Oh wow, I finally got my second-hand starter set off eBay. It's Island of Blood for Warhammer Fantasy. Very relevant content. This will be great to start my high elf army. I mean high elves. Venari. Realm Lords of Worshippers of High Skinari. Let's get it open. Huh? What's this? Requires code? DRM? Oh well, I guess I'll have to buy it new. Now that I've paid $25.95 for the Island of Blood code, I can finally paint my legally distinct, copyright claimable high elves. I'm going to use Vallejo Royal Purple. I love the shade and the dropper bottle design is brilliant. Nice and thin. Now for a thin layer of paint. Yay! Huh? Oh, what's going on? Oh no! Where'd all the glorious paint go? Oh, my paint job has been ruined! I guess I'll just play Star Wars Legion instead. Fantasy Flight don't use proprietary assets in their games. Hi everyone, my name is Discourse and let's talk about Games Workshop and how their business strategy seems to be taking cues from the worst excesses of the video game industry. So I was looking at Team Octarius' release schedule the other day and there was something hauntingly familiar with this chart. And I realized what it was. It's reminiscent of the roadmaps that seems to accompany every single video game release these days. That's right, I'm talking about games as a live service. This is a marketing buzz term imported wholesale from the disastrous creator that is the modern video game industry. And it was coined to describe a type of design where the entire strategy of the publisher is to engage players as much as possible so that they remain within the system and are more easily monetized by selling DLC, microtransactions, and services that in the past might have been considered cheat codes. Now notice that I didn't say that these games are designed to be fun. It's very important to note that engagement is different from fun. Fun just doesn't enter into it. Value doesn't enter into it. Just merely getting you to buy the product regardless of quality and remain within the system is all that matters. This strategy exploits the psychology of players by trapping them in a system designed to extract as much money as possible over a long period of time and doing so incrementally so that the player never quite notices how much they've spent. Oh yeah, remind you of anyone? So much like the proverbial frog being boiled slowly in a pot of water that slowly increases in temperature, never quite noticing that gradual increase, which is a lie by the way. Frogs will totally try to escape boiling pots of water no matter how slowly you turn up the heat. So just chalk up another reason as to why frogs are smarter than people. Players get tricked into spending more and more money as their time in the hobby increases, until, just like the proverbial frog, they boil alive. That's pretty metal. And the thing about this is that it's going to alienate a lot of casual players who just can't afford to keep up with this rate of releases. Really, a huge $200 box set every 3 months? But they will be forever haunted by the chilling, don't you want the latest and greatest thing? As they're given a weekend to make this decision and then never have the opportunity again. So best hope you can keep up. Engagement in this case means that you're losing out by not coming back again and again. And again, and again, and again and again and again, and again and again. So man the harpoons, Games Workshop are hunting whales. And for those dedicated players who are really into the game, they will feel compelled to keep up with these releases. The miniature wargaming hobby as a whole really relies on the collect them all mindset. We can see this from the Great Wargaming Survey of 2020, which shows that the third largest category of players are motivated by collecting miniatures. And Games Workshop know this. So in the case of Kill Team, rather than letting you play with your existing miniatures, I mean sure, there's a paltry compendium that we'll touch on later. They're going to sell you an entirely new box with an upgraded version of your faction down the line, so that you can pay for the privilege of playing with new models designed to replace the models that you already own. Yeah, we haven't seen Games Workshop do this before. So wow, they got you to pay twice to play with models of a faction you already own? Pretty clever, GW. I used to work on a commercial ship, and in that vessel we would have a lot of travelers who had paid a lot of money to be taken from one place to another. A boatload of them, if you will. And this was a few hours trip. And obviously, because it was a few hours, people would need to eat and drink. So what did the boat owner do? Well, sold them overpriced coffee and food, of course, with huge markups, because they were a captive audience and they couldn't go anywhere else. There was no competition, so the owner could charge as much as they wanted. And sometimes, like when I'm looking at the Kill Team Octarius release schedule, the Warhammer community reminds me of the people trapped on that boat in the middle of the ocean buying overpriced coffee, or in this case, tiny little men. I mean, look at the rate of releases here, it's absurd. A new box set every 3 months, probably coming in at around $200 a pop. Is anyone expected to keep up with this? Especially bearing in mind that this is just for one small skirmish game. Games Workshop have a lot of other releases as well for their other systems. This entire policy seems designed around converting average consumers into whales, using the fear of missing out, which by the way is the entire goal of the mobile game industry, which Games Workshop have a little bit of a hand in these days. Conversion of normal users into whales is the goal of most predatory video game publishers, and this new release schedule from Kill Team makes me think that Games Workshop's goals are the same. Oh, you're a fan of Kill Team? Well, the old bonus of Kill Team used to be that it was a really easy onboarding experience for new players to get into the world of Warhammer 40k. You could play it very cheap. You could pick up a box of miniatures on eBay, you buy the core book, and you'd be good to go. But now, get ready for a huge box every quarter, and you won't even have time to contemplate your decision. Once it's gone for good. So you want to keep up, right? So now you're gonna have to keep up with all these new releases, huge boxes full of exclusives, as well as White Dwarf supplements, of course. Oh ho, available in their premium subscription service, don't you know? And a person who would have spent $50 before is now going to be tempted to spend hundreds. And is that fair? Most whales can't actually afford to keep up, because don't be under any illusion, people are suffering from this. Whales, contrary to popular belief, don't tend to be incredibly wealthy people. They may be the top spenders, but they are certainly not the top earners. They're just the smallest group of users who spend the most money. A study on the profile of whales in the Journal of Addictive Behavior found that not only was there no correlation between earnings and how much money was spent in games, but the game developers were disproportionately profiting from high-risk problem gamblers. Now obviously the spending profile and psychology will be different between someone who plays a lot of video games versus someone who's into the miniature wargaming hobby. For example, there's no randomized loot boxes in miniature wargaming yet, but the fear of missing out elements that Games Workshop court hit the same addictive personality types that get ensnared by the predatory video game industry. In this way, Games Workshop are exploiting the needs of a minority of customers rather than catering to the wants of the majority of the player base. And as I thought about this and I contemplated it, I grew more and more dissatisfied, because I realized that the entirety of Games Workshop's business strategy is very comparable to the video game industries at large. Comparisons can be drawn at every level of the product. The Kill Team Octarius box launched with the equivalent of day one DLC. You have your premium exclusives like the metal gauge sold by Games Workshop while stocks last. I mean hell, the entire Kill Team Octarius box set is time limited. We're talking about Kill Team, the game system that was designed to be an accessible entrance to the world of 40k for new players. But now the launch box that onboards these new players into that system is a time-limited product. That's crazy. Yikes. The factions included in the actual box are basically early access for how all the other factions will play. I mean, sure, you can pay money for the compendium so that you can play a more limited force, and then buy our bespoke models down the line in a time-limited exclusive box. Wow, thanks a lot, GW. So if you don't want to play the Death Corps of Krieg or the Orc Commandos, that's too bad. You get to try out early beta mode Space Marines. And then, on top of $50 for the compendium, you can also pay another further $50 for the core rules. I just want to remind people that the vast majority of other game systems present their rulebooks for free and have moved on from the paradigm of codices. The data slates in this compendium are basically unit cards. Look, I can only assume that the increasing price for card stock is the only reason why these haven't been released as just unit cards. But that's fine. There's a really easy solution. Release free PDFs of the rules. But no, that wouldn't make money. And then, on top of that, even though the compendium is $50, it doesn't include any elites or commandos, so that's more books down the line, I guess. And this all sets the precedent that the game itself doesn't have to be feature complete at release. Basically, they're gonna fix it in patches. They can ship a half-baked product into the wild and then get it fixed and feature complete a few years down the line, after having sold you the privilege of doing so. Anyone else remember Necromunda Underhive? Because I do. And you know what? This actually wouldn't be that bad. I mean, I get it. I love to get support for a game system that I enjoy. And if people want it, then they should be able to buy it. But that's precisely my problem. The video game industry exploits the social desire to own something as soon as it comes out. But Games Workshop turned the screws a little bit tighter by explaining that this is your one and only chance to buy this. If you don't buy it now, if you don't have the disposable income right now, then you can't get it ever again. Hey you're missing out. And that is such a dangerous and irresponsible siren call, because lots of people don't have the disposable income to spend on their hobby, but they're going to buy this box set anyway, because to do otherwise would be anathema. The collect them all impulse is incredibly strong, and Games Workshop are preying on that. This is a very dangerous and predatory game that Games Workshop are playing, and the ones who aren't able to keep up with this expenditure leave the hobby completely. I know lots of people who were pushed too far trying to keep up with Games Workshop with a limited disposable income. They're fed up with being manipulated and exploited by underhanded design created to make them feel like they have no choice but to buy in. And that sucks, because they love the games and they love the worlds. But because of the business side of things, they don't get to play. The business side should be peripheral to the game side. The game should be the most important part. But of course, not the Games Workshop. Profit is the only goal. And if that means they have to claw as much money from you as possible before you burn out, then they will. And if you decide to stick around for the long haul, all the better, so long as you keep up with the releases. It's a very distasteful business model that Games Workshop have settled on. You know, I dislike the price increases, but I sort of understand them. But I hate the entire time-limited model, and Games Workshop are purposefully and aggressively exploiting their player base to the extent that it's burning people out completely. I hate it, because we know that there's better, more responsible ways to sell this game. You don't have to limit releases to extremely short periods of time. Give people months or years, not days. And if that's the only way you think you can sell it, maybe rethink the product. But this is all very intentional. They do care about making a good game system, but only insofar as it makes them more money. So that doesn't mean good game design. That means pushing the limits of acceptability. They'll maybe apologize, but that will only slow down their aggressive monetization. They're not going to pull back. It's just attrition. How much can they get away with before there's enough of a backlash that forces them to retreat from this strategy for a period of time before everyone forgets and they just get straight back to it? And this isn't healthy for the community or for the game. There's a lot of new people entering this hobby, and I'm worried that they're going to get burned. And for what? Games Workshop are generating a lot more money, but I'm not convinced that it's going back into the game or being used to benefit their employees. A one-time £5,000 bonus does not convince me of that at all. And they're doing this by milking the consumer. I just don't think that's ethical, and I wish they put the game before the product for once. Thanks for joining me, everyone. I hope you enjoyed this video. It wasn't the most pleasant thing to make, but if you did enjoy it, why not let me know with a thumbs up? And if you'd like to hear more content like this, why not subscribe to the channel for more words in your ear. Thanks again, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye. I can't be the only person who's noticed that Games Workshop changed the movement system in Kill Team just to sell you new peripherals, right? Just to invalidate all the peripherals that you bought before. You've got to buy new ones. Why has no one else brought this up?